Look, to be clear, for those who aren't aware, News Corp Australia is, of course, the owner of Sky News, so I want to make that disclosure up front. But this is an issue that's bigger than the topic of this petition from Kevin Rudd, isn't it? It's concern about how valid these online petitions are, where in this case, Sharri, it's conducted via the Australian Parliament's own website, but nonetheless, you've uncovered more than 1,000 names on this petition that are fake. How do they make it into the document in the first place?
Exactly. I mean, the former Prime Minister has been boasting about the size of this e-petition and that it's the largest e-petition ever presented to Parliament. While that's true, it's not the largest petition ever presented to Parliament. There are a few that have had far more signatories, almost double in size. But on our initial analysis of this petition, there are at least 1,000 signatures that were computer generated and paid for, and scores of others that are clearly fake names. We couldn't physically analyse the full 500,000 signatures, so it's clear that there needs to be a proper digital audit done by cybersecurity specialists who are happy to do so, to analyse the digital footprint, the IP addresses, just to determine the extent of the fraudulent activity within this one petition. But as you say, it's not just about this one petition. The breach here has exposed the vulnerability of the Australian parliamentary petition system to foreign influence, to foreign hackers, and to be exploited. And just to be clear, the reason this is so important, it's not just about a petition, it's the fact that the Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young has used this petition to launch a media inquiry into two ASX-listed companies, News Corp and Nine as well, to have a whole Senate inquiry into the media industry. So this petition is being used as the basis for policy formation.
And the petition has been used as part of a broader campaign. Kevin Rudd, Malcolm Turnbull and others on the back of this petition through the Australian Parliament House. But on the back of this petition, there's a broader campaign about arguments for media diversity in Australia, or so-called media diversity. I think it's a pretty diverse media market anyway. But you make the very valid point about this parliamentary inquiry, and of course it has all the powers of the Australian Senate behind it, the parliamentary inquiry in the upper house. How much of a shadow do you think that this revelation today in the Australian casts on the petition, Mr Rudd's petition?
It absolutely casts a shadow, and the House of Representatives Standing Committee on Petitions has said, based on our revelations, that they're going to launch an investigation. They will investigate the petition to determine, the extent that it is authentic and the extent of the fraudulent signatories, just how far this goes, because, a couple of journalists at The Australian were able to determine that there were more than 1,000 computer-generated bots and many other fake names. Some of them are very obvious, and others are like Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese, who both did not sign the petition. Members of Parliament are not allowed to sign the petition. So, this is just an initial look that we had. If it does need cybersecurity experts to do a full digital audit, they need to be able to access it in order to do that.
Kevin Rudd's hit back today, and he is saying that this is all the work of a far-right internet activist. What's the basis for these claims?
So he's talking about a Melbourne blogger, a Melbourne podcaster who goes by the name of Turncoat. His name is Nicholas Smith, and he was the person who actually paid $58 Australian to someone he thought initially was in China, but it turned out this IT expert was in Bangladesh. And it was this person in Bangladesh who I've interviewed and communicated with in writing as well as over the phone. And he's admitted to paying, to organising these 1,000 plus computer-generated bots. So, Kevin Rudd here is attacking the Melbourne podcaster who did this, but, on the basis of his ideology. But, a couple of things here. Firstly, this podcaster's intent was to blow the whistle, was to showcase the vulnerability of the parliamentary petition. In his interview with me, he said he doesn't actually have a problem with a royal commission into the media and into, media diversity. His issue is that these petitions are being used to influence policy, and yet they're so vulnerable to attack and to influence. So he was showcasing that. But you know, the point is, why does his ideology, and by the way, I don't know if he would consider himself far right. He served in the army for 9 years. He's a young Australian. You know, he seems to have, you know, he's a sensible approach when you speak to him on the phone. I don't think he would consider himself a far-right activist. But irrespective, I don't know how his ideology makes a difference. The point is, there are more than 1,000 computer-generated bots that we have found in this petition, along with so many other fake names. So, you know, Kevin Rudd's attack here on the basis of someone's ideology just doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
There's a chairman of a committee. The House has a committee, the Senate has a committee in relation to petitions. Normally, petitioners have to be Australians, and clearly in this case they're not. They're computer generated as well as being offshore. This has got to be part of the investigation, surely.
Absolutely. Those are the rules. You know, you have to be an Australian to sign the petition, and you have to put your name to it. You know, you can't pay for signatories, but you know, clearly this wasn't happening, and it's really exposed quite a serious breach in the parliamentary system because the security protections aren't there. It was so easy. This Bangladeshi cybersecurity expert explained to me how easily he was able to bypass our Australian parliamentary security system by just clearing his browser cookies every so often. So, you know, I think that's a very big concern as well. And in our story in the Australian Today, cybersecurity experts say that this is an avenue for foreign interference and for foreign influence. So potentially, you know, the government does need to invest in cyber protection as well, because there could be a far more serious issue than something we've exposed here when it comes to, you know, media diversity petition.
Well done, Sharri Markson. I know in the past there's been real concerns with hackers being inside the Parliament House email system for some time before they were discovered. This again calls into question whether the appropriate, we were told then, I was there at the time, the appropriate fixes had been made. This calls into question whether they were made as well as they should have been made, all at a time, isn't it, that the head of ASIO the other day was talking about all being safe online. Well, I think the Parliament's the first place we're going to start.